Hello, Alexander. This is such a privilege to meet up with you here on Zoom.
It's a delight, and it's a delight to, in this way, return to Australia, which is one of my favorite places on the planet.
Oh, fantastic. So good to know. I think we're such a global village, us pilgrims, because we all go and meet on that path and exchange stories, and it just makes the world so much more cozy and connected. Yeah. And that is why I've asked you to have a chat with me, which I'm very grateful for, because I'm taking my second group on a guided Camino. And I have followed your work. I've listened to so many of your talks, and I use your book, Returning From Camino, as a resource for engaging my pilgrims in a rite of passage so that the journey becomes such a meaningful one. So I guess I'd just love to introduce you. You're an anthropologist, you have a background in psychology, spirituality, and Camino as a rite of passage. So
it is true, and I now live on the Camino. I'm here in the village of Muxia, and just pilgrims are passing my window as we're talking, and just about a kilometer further on from this house is the 00 marker here in Muxia. So there are now two 00 markers. There's one in Fistetta and there's one here in Muxia.
And I was in Muxia in 2019 for the first time. So I can picture it. It's beautiful. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And it really is the result of my first Camino walk, which was in 2012. And I can't believe it's 10 years. And here I am.
Oh, wow. And that's why I thought you would be the perfect person to give my group some hot tips on how to make this Camino meaningful. They're all doing it for the first time. And yes, I know, there's nothing like that first time. And I am a tapping practitioner. So before they actually set foot on the path, they will be doing a private tapping session with me to work on any issues in their lives and set some intentions for the journey. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Will you do that once you arrive here in Spain or wherever you start, or in Australia?
I'm going to do it on Zoom from Australia. The first time I did it in villages as we arrived, one by one, and it was quite full on. So now I've decided I'll do it before, and we'll just have like an art of pilgrimage evening somewhere along the way. And I must tell you that we are doing 12 days in Spain and a week on the Via Francigena in Italy.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Italy first or Spain first?
Spain first.
Right.
Yes. So, you know, it's dear to my heart. And in your work, you talk about these 4 stages of pilgrimage. You studied under Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, and this hero's journey. And so my first question I wanted to ask you is, on your first pilgrimage in 2012, what were the obstacles for you? What was the calling and the obstacles and the gifts, and how did you bring them home?
Oh. So I don't want to take up too much time with my story, but I had known I was going to walk the Camino for decades. Really, almost about 25 years. And there always was an excuse about why I never did it that year. And then in 2012, I suddenly had a whole series of speaking engagements cancel or move in very short order. And I found myself with 90 days in my schedule, which I never have. And I was really unhappy until a dear friend of mine said, would you stop grousing and realize you've just been given 90 days? What do you want to do? And as soon as she said that to me, I knew the Camino. So from that moment to walking out of Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port was 2 weeks. I had no physical preparation whatsoever other than my usual physical routine. I came on the Camino because I was emotionally exhausted. The publishing house had run me all over the world speaking, and I really didn't know who I was anymore or what I wanted to say. So I arrived here physically not ready, emotionally knowing I needed it, but not really knowing what I would experience. And the best advice that I was given was follow my body. So I really used the Camino as a time to learn my body in a way that I don't when it's just go to the gym and go home. And the every day is something that we just don't usually do. Now, even if you go out and do a long hike on a weekend, it's not the same as the walking. So for me, I knew the rites of passage. I knew about the 4 parts of a rite of passage. I had studied with Joseph Campbell. I know the hero and heroine's journey. So I had that construct. And I knew it would be a trial, but it was a trial that I wanted. And I also knew that perhaps the hardest emotional part would be coming home, and it was. So those 2 things helped me. They didn't lessen the chaos or the tumult, but at least it didn't hit me unaware. I sort of knew it was going to happen.
Right. And that's why I found your book so useful, because when I got to Santiago, I was one of those people that felt depressed. I didn't want it to end. And I came home and I felt so out of sorts. And and then you get onto all the Facebook groups and you realize so many people feel that way. And
it's almost inevitable and what I like to talk about is that when you're walking, you have many awakenings. And some people expect that the awakening creates the change that you want. But for me, the experience is the awakening deepens my intent. And then when I come home, I have 100 new choices I have to make because I want to live in a larger way or a slightly different way. So it doesn't just automatically happen. And that once I get back home and I have an awareness about how I want to live, the people around me may not find that comfortable.
Yes.
It's hard when you have new experiences and those around you haven't had that experience, may not understand it, and actually get a little fearful of it.
Yes, and that's why I love how you say that what you've experienced is a jewel, and that you should choose someone who really connects with you, that can relate to you and will give you the time to express all your emotions when you come home and describe your journey to them, and they don't glaze over. Because it's such a feeling of shutdown after connecting with so many people around the world every day, to come home and nobody gets you.
Right.
So that's one thing I'll be passing on to my group.
And those 1 or 2 or 3 people who are really those listening jewels in your life that know how to walk alongside with you, don't be afraid that you're going to tell the story over and over and over again, and you're going to be boring them, because when we tell the story to those special people over and over again, we begin to get even more clear about what was important about this journey for us. So telling it over and over is not just like, I want you to watch the movie again, but I learn what's important for me to remember by the repeated telling of the story.
Yes, yes, amazing. And it's about being so aware. I think when I went in 2017, my children had just grown up, and it was like I was giving myself permission. It was like a freedom walk. And my husband sent me off, you go and do this. And it felt so empowering that I would go and do this thing for myself and feel that gratitude for my body, that it got me that far, and the connection with everyone around me, and mostly the connection to myself. And I was actually dealing with an autoimmune diagnosis. And I'll just quickly tell you, along the Camino in Samos, I went for a massage, and I was working through this, and I knew in my heart of hearts that I was healing. And I went for a massage, and there happened to be this amazing lady. And this friend of mine who sat in the room said she'd done, like, moved her hands over my body. And afterwards, she called me over when I was about to leave, and she said, I just want to tell you that your energy is clear. And whatever she was saying, I took it to interpret that I was okay now. So I burst into tears, and it was one of those sacred moments for me, because when I went home, I was clear. I thought I'd share that with you.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
So,
and there's some amazing massage people on the Camino. I don't know where they've learned this skill, but it's fabulous.
And you appreciate it after walking all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Alexander, I love how you say in your book that you have to live the questions, ask the questions. Why am I walking? What am I doing here? Who am I? And then just be playful with it. Don't get too serious about it. Allow the answers to come. And maybe, like you even said, like in the Buddhist tradition, let answers come, let answers go. And I just think that's such a beautiful way to look at life in general.
I sort of had that knowing before I started walking. So I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself to know why I was walking. And every day I actually would try to create a new answer today. And tomorrow I try to create a different answer. But there were so many people, especially early on in the walking, who were so anxious about, I feel drawn to do this and I don't know why. I've got to know why I'm doing this. And just trust that the deeper answer will come when it's the right moment. And in some ways, for me, the deeper answer arrived in my very last step here in Muxia. And I got to the water's edge, and there was this gong that went off. It was like, oh, that's why I've done this. And for other people, it was different times along the way, but don't have an expectation that you have to know, or that you're going to know everything about it. It will reveal itself gradually over time.
Yeah. And I found it so interesting in your case, where you said it took 7 years to digest your first Camino. So what were some of the changes that you made in your life?
Well, it was really interesting because within a few months of my first Camino, I moved from the United States to New Zealand and spent 5 years between New Zealand and Australia. And what I was learning during that whole time was a sense of being at home in myself. And I learned that all those beautiful, wonderful things that I had back in my home in the States, I didn't really need. They were nice, but they weren't who I was, and that I could go anywhere in the world with a few things and be quite happy. And then secondly was really this sense of listening to so many people who came home and found themselves almost in they were so confused about what do I do now, because they came home expecting that it was going to be clear. And that became the reason that I wrote the book, because I wanted people to know that the truth of the walking is when you come home and you see your life with new eyes. And then when you're back into your ordinary life that you left to go walking, then you can see the new choices you want to make. But seeing the new choices and actually making those new choices is a separate thing. And it takes a lot of work and support to make those choices in the middle of what everybody's always known you this way. And now you've got wider vision. And like I said, sometimes people don't want to support that wider vision because it makes them fearful. If you can change, then I could change.
Yes. And you become a kind of lighthouse. Yeah.
So the 7 years, really, it took me 7 years to write this book, which started on the 2012 Camino. And I just listened to myself and I watched so many other pilgrims go through this coming home process and thought, I started out saying, somebody needs to write this book. And then I finally heard, well, I guess you need to write this book.
Yes. Oh, and that's when you're bringing home those gifts. And I guess it took me a while to work out, so how do I implement this in my life? And, reminding myself, like I need to remember, because we get so dulled by routine and the busyness. And so I love going back again to remember and find new gifts. And I guess like taking groups now, I feel like I'm introducing other people to this whole other way of life. And as you say, coming home to yourself, that's the best way to probably describe it.
And there are two exercises that I have found really helpful. I did not do them for myself in 2012. I wish that I had, but I have done them ever since, and I've invited other people to. And that is in a few days before you leave home, before you begin walking, to write yourself a letter about your intents and your hopes and your worries and your dreams for this walk, and put that aside. And then on your last day, literally your last day or the day before you get on that plane or train or whatever to go home from walking, to sit down and to write that letter to yourself about, this is what I want to remember. Because what I've discovered is that as soon as we get on that plane or train, and definitely by the time we get home, the amnesia starts. And life comes rushing. And so I've said to people, put the letter that you wrote that last day away for a month or 2 months, and then pull it out, and people are shocked, literally shocked at what they've already forgotten about what was so meaningful to them while they were walking. And that letter becomes kind of an anchor to the memory. And really, after a month or two, and I just really want people to put it away for a short while so that they can come back and see it fresh.
Yes. Well, I'll definitely be be using that with my group. Yeah.
I know many. In fact, even the Pilgrim Welcome Center in Santiago is now having people write themselves a letter when in their reflection groups, etc. It's become probably one of the most used pieces of my book.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. And that is one of the gifts that you've put out as a result of your Camino.
Yeah.
So when are you leading your next group?
Oh, I am not leading a next group. My work partner, Annie, who actually is walking the Camino right now, she's going to lead the group this year. And I'm going to join them at certain places along the way for their retreat days.
Right.
But this year, at least, I'm not leading a group. We'll see what the answer is for next year. But I've got so many work projects. The group is 62 days this year. So this is a huge commitment. And this year especially, I just can't take that amount of time away. But because I live here, it's so easy now to just simply travel to be with them for the 2 and 3 day retreats. We have a 3-day retreat at the beginning and a 2-day retreat in the middle and a 5-day retreat at the end.
Wonderful. And do you find you draw a lot on your psychology background when you're running these retreats?
Yes, although I will tell you that it's really my anthropology background, which is most valuable. Learning about, and that was my field, were rites of initiation or rites of passage worldwide, and studying what people have done across human history that we know, and even today, I learned so much of what is part of the universal rite of passage, and I have been able to use that material in what I do in leading people. So as much as psychology is a tremendous help, especially with all the diversity of personalities,
yeah,
it's the anthropology which I lean greatly on.
Amazing. It's kind of like your whole life has led you to this very niche role that you're playing.
It is, and I wish that for you as well, because leading people on the Camino is probably the most fulfilling and the most challenging thing I've ever done.
Yes. When they get their blisters and sore legs and get grumpy, then
well, yeah, I mean, when you live close to each other for that amount of time in something that is so arduous and yet fun-filled, we get to see ourselves at our best, and we get to see ourselves at our most vulnerable.
Yes, true. And yeah, and I just love the connection, hey, because we're all so similar. And you know, when somebody's feeling a bit stronger, they're going to take the lead. And yeah, I have a beautiful Canadian friend that I met on my first Camino, and she joins me every time. And we just complement each other. I'm more the introvert, she's the extrovert. She looks after everyone. So
that's fabulous. That's really fabulous.
And you know, Alexander, that whole sort of cliched statement the Camino provides, I've really bought into that. And I suppose saying it another way is that the universe is always acting in your favor. And it's such a lovely way to live, knowing that you're going to be supported.
It is, it's a beautiful way. And I think that I've had a lot of trust in my life, but when I walked the Camino, especially that first year, that first time, I learned trust at like a bedrock place in myself. That now I pretty much know when the difficult times come, it's like, okay, this is a difficult moment, but I'm being prepared for something larger. And I don't mean that in any sort of a Pollyanna way, because difficult times are difficult times, but knowing that there is something larger on the way. is an utter help.
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful to have had this chat with you. We will be talking about you when we have our Art of Pilgrimage evening, one in Spain, one in Italy. We'll be experiencing a few albergues and a few hotels, but I really want to give my group that sense of the journey and, you know, like we're just walking each other home. So you'll be with us. You'll be with us in spirit.
Thank you. If you get to Muxia, send me a message and look for me. And but before we end, I'm going to change my camera so you can see out the window and you can see the Camino.
Oh, amazing. Oh, look at that. Beautiful.
So right out my window is the Camino. In fact, if you could see just beyond the wall, there's a Camino marker right there. And I see pilgrims stop every hour of the day and take a picture there because they're just a kilometer away from the 00 marker.
Incredible. And may I ask you, are the pilgrim numbers picking up?
Yes, huge.
Fantastic. And huge. I'm keeping up to date. The COVID restrictions seem to be slowly relaxing and things getting back to normal.
Yes, and I mean, though COVID still exists, over 90% of everyone in Spain is double vaccinated and boosted. So, I mean, we still have some mask wearing, but in general, the fear and the anxiety over it has greatly passed.
Great. I'm just so grateful to be able to go back again. So, that is such an amazing image to end with. This recording I'll be sharing with my group and some of the Camino community, and it'll be so wonderful to give them this picture of the ocean and the blue skies in Spain, in Muxia.
Buen Camino. I hope that I could have the chance to personally greet you, but regardless, walk well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and you go well too. Buen Camino. Bye.